Yeah, well, anyway, basically, we're just going to be going over some of the stuff we were reading in the book, the Save the Cat mainly. Just like the main points that we got from the book and like some of the main tips and things that he was talking about that we feel like the group could benefit from, or like just to be reminded about, since we've already been talking about some of this stuff. So yeah, if anyone has any questions or anything, just go ahead and feel free to, or if they have anything to add. And Priscilla, I'll be asking you to like expand on some of this stuff. But our first one is one of the tips he gave was whenever you're writing a script, study movies and ideas that are similar to what you want to make. So if you're trying to make a sci-fi about time travel, go out and find some other sci-fi time travel movies and some ideas and books and see how they made it, what works, what you feel didn't work, why you think it works, like what kind of characters they had and how you can make yours different than theirs, but still have your idea. Then another one was always know your formula so you can know how you can modify it. So it's kind of that rule of like know the rules so you know how you can break it or you can bend it.
And in this book especially, I feel like that's a big thing because we actually disagreed. Colin knows, he was in the group study. We actually disagreed with him quite a bit on quite a few things.
But at the end, not Colin.
No, not Colin. We like Colin. But we disagreed with him on a few things, but at the end of the day, you have to look at it from the perspective of, well, first of all, his job, what it was, because he passed away, but his job was to write spec scripts for that sell and to write PG movies for children and families. So his ideas of plot were a little more simplistic. His rules were a little more like they don't work for every single story. So it's okay for you to read a book about screenwriting and look at a rule that may work for someone and be like, I don't think this would work for me. Like we can look at a book critically because unfortunately a lot of people think that because, oh, this guy made it, this guy, he sold a lot of stuff. So obviously I must follow every single thing that he's talking about and he must be and right on everything and everything should work 100% of the time. Some people think that, and it's okay. It's okay for things to work for different people. But it was good for us to know those rules because we're like, we can know when they don't work. We can know when they can work and when it's a good structure to use to learn from. And we can learn when maybe it's time to break some of those rules a little bit, you know? So I thought that was a good tip, especially when reading that book, because it is a really good book. There are a lot of really good tips, but it is very formulaic and it is more specific to a certain audience and demographic. Speaking of Colin, you weren't here in the book study last night. I just want to point one thing out. The entire book, he's telling people to email him, right? The entire book, he's telling, email me at this, and tell me your idea and blah, 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 right? Last chapter of the book, the dude says every unknown email that comes to him, it's immediately put in spam. He was trolling us the entire book.
Does he actually like call back to that and say, "Oh, wait a minute, like, haha"?
No, he just
totally.
No, he just says if it's from a stranger, I just delete it.
He just casually
he was saying like, email me here if you disagree, and I'll try to prove you wrong. I'll read your script and see it, and he was acting like he was going to go through 100,000 emails. Then at the end, he's like, I just delete them all.
Whoa, you're generous. You're 100,000 emails. One, you think people, people are going to email him. Two, you think people are going to buy the book? You know, like, oh.
Yeah.
No, I just feel like if you hadn't read the whole thing, if you're like halfway through and you're studying and you're following his tips and his exercises, which some are really good, by the way, to do, and some we've already touched on, which is why we're not going to repeat them here. But like, if you're halfway through the book and you're emailing the guy and giving him ideas, and then you get to the end and you're like, wait, what? So I've just been wasting my time.
Wasting time emailing, yeah.
Oh man.
You're like trying, like,
that's such
wrote
a
out
downer.
passionate, like Discourse.
Which is there,
Like, oh,
Such a
please,
downer to
like,
find out
look at
like
my
at the
ideas.
end none of it really mattered.
Yeah, like he just wasted all that time trying to counter argue what he was arguing in the book.
Yeah,
Just
it
to
was
realize
like
that
the
he's never
pen
even
pal
gonna
who never
look at it.
answered, But it was like
What?
part of the art form to not answer. Like that was the whole thing.
And then
Yeah.
it's even more of a downer when you find out he died 4 years after making the book,
Whoa.
or 5 years after making the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we find out that the poor man, like, he was a good salesman though. And at the end of the book, he even talks about the fact that spec scripts, and we were talking about this last night in the meeting, that spec scripts, back in the day, they used to sell for these huge prices because there would be bidding wars between the the companies, and that doesn't happen as much anymore, or didn't happen as much anymore, which is why a lot of the scripts that he sold didn't end up actually being made, because they were just so focused on the bidding war that they didn't actually look to see if it was a script that they would want to make, which is why only 3 of his films were actually made, and one ironically won a Razzie for worst screenplay. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was really interesting. And we were talking about how now with streaming, the bidding wars are kind of like back, because now you're pitching to different streaming services and people are giving multi-movie deals.
They're going back to having like original IPs
At the
again,
end of the
just
day,
just the remakes
So-
and sequels. At least for streaming, they like having original.
yeah. So
Sometimes.
his ideas are being kind of revisited in a way, because a lot of them are, the ones that either didn't work for the time are being worked right now. So it's pretty cool to actually see it come full circle. It was pretty interesting. Yeah.
All right.
We're not bashing the book, guys, for goodness sake. Like, we say like, oh, we disagreed, his ideas were there. Like, for our taste, a lot of this stuff was like, but his basic ideas were brilliant in the sense of they are basic ideas, especially making it primal. And I don't think we wrote that note down, honey, for the group study.
I don't think I had it down.
But he talks a lot about making your script, making your story have something primal in it, which is something that people can connect to, because everyone wants something. It's either sex or food or adventure or love, or so you being able to create that human connection through that story.
Like on the underneath everything, there should be something primal to the reasons why they're doing what they're doing. Do they want power? Do they want sex? Do they want recognition? What is the primal goal underneath what they like, their actual goal that you see in the movie? Like, what's underneath it? Why are they doing this? What do they want?
And that will not only make you understand the character more, but understand his motivations more, but it will also make you resonate with him and connect with him. A good example, if you guys, last night we watched The Big Short for the first time, and man, it was so good. They were explaining like complicated stuff in the funniest ways. Like, they would get these celebrities to explain it, and like Margot Robbie in a bathtub with champagne explaining the stock market to you.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Yeah, it was
It's an
so
interesting
good.
way for them to try to entertain you with something that would normally be boring for everyone to hear.
Such a good and a good plot device too, to use exposition. So clever. But also you could tell the primal desires of each one of them, because it wasn't just about making money. For some, it was about screwing over Wall Street, for example, or the banks for what they were doing to people. For others, it was the ambition. For some, they just wanted to prove a point. So it was really interesting, because you understood the motivations of each one, and it wasn't just these people are evil and taking advantage of a situation. It was, well, this situation is happening anyway. It's the bank's already screwed over the people, and it's gonna crash anyway. So these are people that are just trying to make the most of the situation, but some, of course, looking at their own pockets. So it was a very interesting take, and the complexities of the characters are really well done, and you could see those primal desires manifested in every single one of the characters, even the side characters.
Ooh, which movie is this?
Oh,
The Big Short.
were talking about
We
it.
watched it yesterday.
And the behind the scenes. James, if you haven't seen the behind the scenes, it's so good. It is so good. The behind the scenes, how they explain it, how they go over like the entire mess of it all.
Yeah.
I couldn't get over it. It was such a good movie. We really enjoyed it.
But anyway, what we're doing, guys, I think Sarah and James, you guys just came in. We're just going over like some of the main points of the book we've been going over. I mean, you guys already know it, but we're just going over repeating some of the things that we think stuck out the most that can help everybody.
And we were talking about primal just now, like making it primal.
About it.
Yeah.
And we were talking about primal desires and goals and how everything your characters do should have an underlying primal reason for why they're doing what they're doing. And
or they just hate them or are bored by them. Yeah. Even if it's hate, it has to be enough hate to where you still want to watch them. Like you hate what they're doing, but you're interested in seeing like where it goes and that kind of thing, you know? Because if you just hate someone, a good example that we gave was Friends from College. Like they were horrible people till the second season and they got canceled because you can only watch horrible people do horrible things for so long and it not be as compelling and you not have anything to root for until it gets boring. The first season we were like curious because we wanted to see everything fall to the ground and they get what they deserved and you know, but it didn't happen.
Yeah.
If anything, they just got rewarded for their bad behavior. So people got bored.
All right. Well, I'm going to lead to the next point. So the next thing was you can have a great idea and you can still wreck it with the characters. And that he was talking about, like, depending on what your idea is, you can still make it a good idea turn bad if you put the wrong kind of characters in there and make the story more boring or bland. Like, and I thought of like Star Wars wouldn't be as good without the Han Solo fighting against like, you know, the other two that are talking about like this religion they have. And he's like, I don't believe in that crap. And it wouldn't be as interesting if he wasn't in it and it was just like some character that agreed with them fully, or it wouldn't be as interesting and compelling if everyone just agreed and everyone shared the same point of view. It's interesting depending on what kind of characters you have in it, and it makes the story drive forward more.
There are some stories, of course, that are so compelling and so interesting that you can have a boring character and the story's still going to be interesting. But at the end of the day, the complement of the two is what makes it magic and what makes it more relatable to the people. The same way you can have a really good character, but if he's in a crappy plot, it, you know, you can only watch the character for so long. Oh, why are you making weird faces, Colin?
I'm thinking.
You thinking about what?
Okay.
Just like stuff. I don't know. I have a lot of things to think about right now.
Gotcha.
Don't worry, we're expanding on some more stuff. I know right now it's just like, oh, we already talked about this, so you're probably bored to hell.
No, no. I've just lost in my own world, honestly. I don't know.
So you're not even paying attention, is what you're saying. Okay.
Maybe a little bit, but don't worry about that. No, I'm kidding.
All right. But another thing was the concept. Well, it's kind of the same thing. Like the concept can become very different with different characters. It's kind of like the same basic thing. If you change the characters, you can make a different story. Like it can still be good. It'll just be different depending on what kind of characters you have in it.
And we've mentioned this before, but we think that like for you, Raphael, since you have so many, like you like storyboards and you like ideas, that we have two things in here that we thought were like, oh, Raphael will love this.
Cool.
And one of them was, I love Coda's ideas of like, he has these lists, and we've talked about this before, but he has these lists of characters. Like he creates different characters with different personalities, and he has a list of them, and then he has another list of stories and plots and situations, and he sometimes will go and put them together and see which ones match the story better. And I feel like it's a really good thing to have, because you kind of already have the outline of certain character personalities and certain, you know, and you match them to the right story.
Or you just
That's
see
not a
what
bad
the
idea.
interesting thing would be if you put them in. Like if you have like, do I have a Raphael type? Do I have a Colin type? Do I have a James type? Do I have a Sarah type? Do I have a V type? Priscilla
What
type?
story would challenge them the most? Yeah, what
Like-
story would challenge them the most? Would give them the most growth?
Which
and-
would be interesting to put this character into, and then you just see what happens.
yeah.
You know, it would be a fun game if we like analyzed each other and we're like, what story would challenge you the most? Like that would be like kind of game where we
I feel like you're already
try and come
being
up with the most
Colin,
challenging
he has
storyline.
nothing to do. He's accomplished everything he's ever set out to do. Now he's just challenged by how bored he is.
now he's stressed about the fact that he has nothing to be stressed about. Kind of like my mother.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's just like it depends like what kind of characters you can put into your story.
James has a what do you call it? James has a time crunch. You have a specific date that you have to bring a script in. And your anxiety.
Do you guys want to hear see how it's going?
Oh sure, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
How should I do this? Should I screen share?
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. I'm still working on a scene, so I'm the scene that I'm working on right now. I'm gonna not say it, so I'm only gonna read up to that scene. Okay?
Okay.
That's
Is that okay?
fine.
Does that work?
Yeah, that works.
Oh, I'm excited.
Let me allow you to screen share.
Well,
I
I'm
wasn't
not on my. I'm not connected. I'm not on in the Zoom meeting to my computer yet. Let me connect to the meeting.
Oh,
Okay, well we'll keep going with the list then, and then once you join in, let us know.
Yeah, I got you.
But I'm excited. I didn't think you guys were gonna bring anything today. And I was joking, just so you know, James. I was joking.
All right, I'm gonna go to the next point though. So the next point was he was talking about in the book how he creates a board, and then we thought this, Raphael, is something you might like. You probably heard of it, but it's like a board where you put one of those like push pin boards. I don't know what they're called.
Corkboard?
Yeah,
Bowling board?
cork board. You have like a cork board, and you write different story points, different scenes that you thought of, different lines of dialogue, or like the major plot points that you've thought of for your story. And then you put them up on the board under like maybe whatever act structure you're using. Like if you're using the story wheel like you were, you'd have each part of the story wheel on top. Or if you're using the 3-act structure, like the act 1, act 2, act 3, you put that on top. And everything underneath it, you would have a different index card with the scene or line of dialogue or the plot point, and you'd put it underneath it and see how it would flow and what would connect to what. And he said to like make all the different story arcs have a different color so that you can follow them through the story. And then you can rearrange it and see like maybe this doesn't work in act 2, maybe it would work better in act 3, or maybe it would work better in act 1. And so we thought that was a really cool idea, and especially since Raphael, you were using like you already did the story wheel on your paper, we thought you might like doing something like that.
Sorry, do you know what chapter that's in? Save the Cat, right?
Yeah, you have
Let
it.
me look it up. I got it. Let me check.
Because I just felt like I wasn't gonna have time to like actually sit down and read it, so I did like find like an audiobook version, but
Okay. Like it has a lot of good information, but like we said, it's some of it can be very kid.
Honey, do you know?
James, you're allowed to share your screen
Sweet. Okay.
if you do, but hold on, I'm gonna try to check if I can find this.
I still
By
can't
the way,
believe.
Raphael, if you
or-
look
This,
at the
this
word
book.
writing
Huh?
theory, I started the first few pages of the anatomy of story, and it's already totally different from Save the Cat.
Let me
Highly
check.
recommend it.
Oh yeah, we are so pumped to actually get to it. Okay, so I found it. The major terms.
Here, I'm gonna share my screen real quick and show you guys this thing. I found this.
I think I found it.
oh, I
So
think
it's
I
kind of
found it
like
too.
that. You write down like it, depending on what you have already, like in your head.
Chapter 5, Building the Perfect Feast. I think it's that one because I'm seeing the images of the boards and stuff.
Yeah, I see it. putting it up on the board, sectioning off 4 horizontal rows for each section of the movie, 40 index cards, and only 40. Troubleshooting based on the layout, how a screenplay is a business plan, and how you can create one that sells.
Yeah, and so then you just kind of make a board like what's up on the screen. It'd be like he's talking about the 3-act structure, I think. So that would be, or no, he's talking about Act 1, Act 2, Part 1, Act 2, Part 2, and then Act 3, I think. So he'd have like 4 rows. And you would just write down ideas or lines of dialogue or whatever you have, whatever ideas you have that you feel like would fit into the movie. And you put them up on that board. And once you get past 40, you start being like, okay, what can I combine or what can I kick out? And then you start making like the main story points from there. And you just keep doing that and readjusting them and figuring out, what's your 40 main story points you want in that movie? And then you like readjust it to, do you want it in Act 1? Do you want it in Act 2? Do you want it in Act 3? What flows the best?
It's
Also,
on chapter
it helps you
5.
to look. It helps you to look at like the character's progression, and it helps you to look, okay, were these questions that I opened in Act 1, are they answered in Act 3? Or did I leave anything out? Did I forget about this side character that did this and then they just disappeared off screen and I didn't answer any of that? Do I need to go back to it?
Yeah, that was
Visual.
something that we mentioned.
Dude,
It
this
was
sounds
like, this is
good. Like I never, like I always get like random ideas and I just like jot them down real quick. But like putting it together like this sounds a lot better.
Yeah,
It
we
also
thought,
makes you more
especially,
productive
the way
because
we
you're
saw
constantly
you
looking
work,
at
like
it.
it just seems like it'd really benefit you, and I feel like it'd benefit us too. Probably benefits everybody, but like we just thought, especially with you, because you
I'm pretty scatterbrained.
No, like you already showed that you like write down the stuff and make like a story wheel and stuff like that. So this is kind of on the same page as that.
Yeah.
You could
Yeah.
even make the story wheel up on top and do like, the hero has conflict and write down what happens during that, and then do the next part of your story wheel and just have it all be, laid out like that.
Yeah, if you want to check it out, it's in chapter 5, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's chapter 5, yeah. Also, this book blew my mind with the fact that it showed me a scene in Elf that I never noticed until he mentioned. That like Buddy the elf was suicidal in a scene, and I was like, wait, what? No.
You
He's
never
lying.
realized?
Huh?
Was it one of those things where like childhood innocence just didn't let you realize that
Yes!
the dude was about to like
No. He was like, Buddy the elf, you can tell when he thinks about suicide. And I was like, and then he was like in the theater and he yelled out or he thought out loud, this is it, the primal moment or something like that. And I was like, no, he's wrong. He's wrong. Honey, he's wrong, right? And then we like took out the DVD.
We watched the scene that he was talking about, and we're like, oh, he's right. He does look like
but he's not suicide.
Is there like a scene of him on the bridge? Like, is that what it's talking about?
Yeah. He's like
For a
looking off
split
the
second,
bridge.
he
don't remember
looks
that at all.
down.
He's on the bridge and he's looking down and he's all sad and it just looks like he's about to jump, and then he notices
He's
his
like,
dad
I don't
down
belong
there.
here. I don't belong anywhere. And then he looks down at the bridge, and it's like I was like, what?
Yeah.
How did I never notice this?
Childhood innocence.
Yeah,
Oh
pretty
my
much.
We watched this
Anyway,
movie
James, do you want to go ahead and share your
Yeah.
screen and do the
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I couldn't come up with a title for it. Bad writer, I know, but
Shut up.
No self-deprecation.
Well, say the cat said you're supposed to come up with the title before you even start writing. So
Really?
Already
I
failed.
have such a hard time with the title.
he says that the title, it's like apparently the title's supposed to help you, and it helps inform you
about what the movie's
the
about.
writing, but like I don't know. I feel like the log line does a better job of that.
Yeah, his tips about already mentioned this, which is why we didn't put this in our notes. Honey, can you mute Sarah's munching?
I did, yeah.
We already mentioned this, which is why we didn't put it in our notes this time around. But he has a really good, in one of the first few chapters, I don't know if it's the first one or the second one, but when he talks about building your log line, he gives you some really good tips. and he talks about the importance of a log line. So good. That was like one of the like that one, chapter 7 and chapter 8, best chapters in our
For real, yeah.
yeah. The
All right, but you can
first
go ahead
and the
and
last
begin.
chapters.
All right. Cut in. Exterior, backyard, late afternoon. Mia giggles as she holds the unlit sparkler close to her face. Her messy hair, dirty dress, and crooked tiara indicate she's been playing around for a while. Melinda stands in front of her, fiddling with a cheap kitchen lighter. She looks up at Mia. Melinda, in Spanish. Don't hold it so close to your face. Mia extends her arm. Melinda mumbles under her breath as the device fails to ignite. Behind them, several children run around playing with their own sparklers while their parents mingle. Leo stands in front of the grill, flipping burger patties and serving guests as they line up for food. He looks a tad overwhelmed. Melinda tries the lighter one more time. Joy washes over Mia's face as she finally lights the sparkler. Melinda continued, cautiously. Don't hurt anyone. Mia, excitedly. Thank you, Mommy. Mia begins to run off. Melinda quickly grabs her by the arm. Melinda, Mia, wait! She fixes Mia's tiara. Melinda continued, go have fun. Mia runs off to join the other children. Interior, kitchen, evening. Leo stands over the enormous pile of rubbish on the counter with disgust in his eyes. Melinda enters the kitchen carrying what was left of the birthday cake. They are both incredibly exhausted. Leo, incredulous. Man, this is stupid. Melinda, slightly on edge. Leo, chill. Leo begrudgingly grabs a trash bag and starts throwing away garbage. Melinda starts cutting up the leftover cake and storing it in containers. Leo stops, takes a deep breath, looks at Melinda for a bit, then resumes. Leo, humorously. How many kids does one girl even need around? Melinda stays quiet. Leo continued. Like, I'm pretty sure some of those kids were duplicates. A chuckle escapes from Melinda's lips. Melinda, cracking a smile. Shouldn't you be glad your daughter has a lot of friends? Leo, proudly. Hell no. In my day, I only had 2 friends at my parties. Melinda, holding in laughter. That's just sad. Leo, one of them was imaginary. Melinda bursts out into laughter. Interior, Mia's bedroom, night.
Has
Mia
no one
sits
ever
up in-
had that moment where you invite a bunch of people in school to your party and only like 1 or 2 show up?
Yeah.
I think everyone's had moments like that,
Take
maybe at like
laughing.
different ages. So even if you like have a bunch of friends at like say a few years, that doesn't mean you did before.
No,
Yeah.
but being a little kid and
Laughing.
inviting the school to your party and having 2 people show, that hurts. Okay.
Yeah, I guess.
Go ahead, James. Just had to vent
Interior.
my childhood, trauma.
Right? Interior, Mia's bedroom, night. Mia sits up in her bed as Melinda cycles through flashcards. Melinda, exaggerating facial expression. Ah, ah, ah. Mia, enthusiastically. Araña. Melinda, means? Mia, spider. Melinda cheers. Interior, living room, night. Leo walks around, turning the lights off one by one. In the background, the TV is tuned to the news. On screen, 2 news anchors cover local stories. News anchor 1. In other reports, we've received some reports of light tremors here and there throughout the tri-state area. News anchor 2.
Don't you mean in
Challenge
other
number-
news?
Huh?
Shouldn't it be in other news?
In other news.
Oh, you said in other reports.
Oh yeah, you said in other reports we received
Oh,
reports.
shit. Whoops. In other news, we've received some reports of light tremors here and there throughout the tri-state area. Tremors here in the Northeast? News anchor 1. Well, they're not as uncommon as most think. The governor assures us that these are just natural phenomena. News anchor 2. Here is very own words in a statement released earlier today by the governor's office. The screen cuts to an image of an The screen cuts to an image of an arrogant white man in a student tie, his face awash with apathy and condescension as he stands in front of a podium. Words flash.
Jeez, James, tell us how you really feel. No, I'm kidding.
This was my best description of Andrew Cuomo.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. Words flash. Words flash on the screen as news anchor 1 reads the governor's statement. Despite how often it actually happens, the science shows that every 100 or so, Leo turns off the TV. Does not care much for what the governor has to say. He walks over to the living room light switch and shuts it off before walking out. Behind the half-closed curtain, beyond the window, you see several buildings in the distance lose power. Okay, yeah, that's it.
Okay, so one thing I would say is that you got a lot of the parentheticals, and they say like try to keep that limited if you can.
Keep it to a minimum, because for the most part, you'll already get across what you're trying to get across with your
through
dialogue.
the dialogue. A lot of that stuff could be like proudly could be taken out from Leo's line. Holding and laughter could stay in there, but like,
I mean, I don't know. It depends on the line. What is the proudly part? Because sometimes it is necessary because the person could say it in another way.
it says, hell no, in my day, I only had 2 friends at my parties.
Oh, then yeah, I think it does need to be proudly, because he could just be like, I don't know. You know?
Yeah, I guess. I just think there's probably like too much of the
I tend to, as I write, so like this is probably gonna look different by the final like draft.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
by the time I finish it, because I tend to like self-edit as I write.
Yeah.
So, like I'll write a
But
scene
I
and then
like
I'll read
it.
the whole
I
thing
can
and then
feel
edit it and then write the next scene and then read the whole thing and then edit it.
And then another thing I was like with there was one line of action where you're talking about how they felt. Oh, like he doesn't care too much for the TV, and that's the kind of stuff that would need to be shown instead of just said like explained in the action.
Or maybe with even just like a facial expression, like he turns away and like
rolling his eyes or something.
Yeah. It's showing like he doesn't give a crap about the news. It's always just the news, you know?
Sure.
Yeah. But
yeah,
I like it. I feel the
like
sense of dread coming in. The inevitable sense of dread. Because I don't know if you're gonna kill everybody, but I can tell something's gonna happen.
Oh, and then Leo, you've already introduced him. So in Leo under kitchen evening, he could
that was a typo. Yeah, that was a typo. That was a typo, and then I forgot to hit Control S before quitting.
Gotcha.
We all do
anyway,
that.
that's just my little like nitpicks, but yeah, I like it.
Thank you.
I can't wait to see how you finish it. I really can't. I know we give you a hard time and we tease you, but it's just because we know how brilliant you are, and we know how much you procrastinate. We're excited to see.
Did you say how much you depress me?
How much you procrastinate?
How
much you procrastinate?
Well, I mean, they're not both. They're both right.
Yeah. No, I'm kidding. But for real, like we're just excited to see what you got. So we're like, come on, James, come on. Are you there yet?
Am I still sharing? Whoops.
Oh yeah, you can stop. Okay. Yeah, that was cool. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any notes or anything they'd like to give James on the first part of his script?
It's okay, guys. Lay it down hard.
Lay it thick.
Oh, Colin, you gonna say something?
Colin's got some opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm moving toward the screen. Therefore, I must be wanting to say something.
Well, your floating head is getting closer.
I can't see you because I'm not looking at the screen.
Okay, now I'm going to say something.
Okay.
That's what I just said. I said that.
Okay.
Raphael, Sarah, V, you guys have anything?
Well, if no one's saying anything, then obviously they must really love you, and you must be brilliant.
Oh,
no, holy shit, that's way above my weight class.
Minus the the not so great stuff.
Oh, come on, Raphael. He's had more time to practice. That's why. Like, the more you do it, the better you get. Yeah. You kidding me?
Raphael,
the way he procrastinates?
No, Raphael, I've been doing this since I was in high school. Like, it's not, you can't compare yourself to that.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly. Just like James said, you can't compare yourself to him.
No, dude, like, it just sounds perfect. Like, I don't feel like I can add anything to it that's, like, worthwhile.
I mean, from a plot perspective, I feel like there can be more to it, you know. But at the same, I don't want to like stuff it, but you know.
I feel like
Well, I
no,
think
if
we need
you're-
to wait and see what happens with it before I give any.
Yeah, because otherwise,
thought.
like you said, one of the tips, I don't know if that's the next one, so I'm gonna wait to give that one, I guess. But like oh God, can I just give it, honey?
What are you
Sure.
talking about?
The every scene must be intentional tip.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So one of the tips that we had on the list, and like we already got here, so we might as well, is that every scene should be intentional. Because sometimes we think we should add more. We think we should probably flesh this out or add more calm moments. And we're like, oh, every scene is necessary. And then you go back and you can cut half the screen, half the script, and you still have your main story. So like you said, I feel like right now it's good because like it's building up the tension. People are calm and just living their daily lives. And then you hear the thing on the news and like
Stuff's starting to happen, but they're still not.
Exactly. So I feel like it's
probably gonna
good.
change that entirely. It's probably not even going to be on the news by the time I finish it.
Yeah,
No,
it
that's
might
fine.
just-
Like seeing like different drafts is cool. Like that's what different drafts are for. But
Yeah,
I'm just
it
saying,
might
like,
just start with a tremor. Like while they're cleaning, it might just be while they're cleaning up everything, starts to tremble and boom, they're screwed. So at the end of the day, rereading is good, and trying not to overfill your scene or over explain your scene or over explain your character is good. And we should look at every scene. Yes, there should be scenes where you flesh out your character and you flesh out your story, but every scene should be intentional to your story, and every dialogue should be intentional. Even if it shouldn't always feel intentional, but it should be intentional to the story, so that way it's constantly flowing, it's constantly going forward instead of feeling stagnant and boring and like filler. You know, like we've read so many scripts at this point, both of everyone else's and like professional ones, and you can see some scenes where it's just like they didn't need that just felt like if they think they need that, but really if they cut that out, it wouldn't have made any difference at all. And it could,
especially when it's like a feature length film and they're trying to just kind of fill the time, it seems like.
Exactly.
What do? We only have like 70 minutes of actual, idea. Now we just filled 20 minutes of random crap.
And with shorts, it's the opposite. We think we need all this stuff, but at the end of the day, the more we rewrite and reread, at least like for me, I've been like when I try to get it down to 10 pages because that's what most festivals want. I sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm never going to be able to make it go down to 10 pages. Like I have 13, 14. And then the more I start rewriting and rereading, I'm like, oh, wait, this doesn't need to be here. This is filler. This is, I mean, it's nice. You start, there's that big, what's the word in English? You start detaching, like, God, the word. You're attached to those scenes and you're like, this is pivotal, this is necessary. And then the more you read it and the more you read it, you're like, okay, I can get this out. This isn't that necessary. I'm just attached to that scene, you know? And
yeah, like even in the book, he was talking about that. Like, that's why he said for the board, you only have 40 index cards, because if you can't combine it and you can't make it into like 40 different main points in your movie, then it probably shouldn't even be there because that's too much stuff going on. It's probably not needed. You probably have a way to make like the plot move forward without needing like 70 different points you're trying to make, basically. And so like that's a good way, like when you're making that board, that's a good way to kind of look through it and see what can I combine, and if I can't combine it, what is not needed, what is
and sometimes you
just
just have
here
to,
that's kind of cool, like what's a cool scene but like it doesn't do anything for the story. And plenty of movies have that, where they have like a scene that's like really cool, but it's kind of like it didn't really do anything to move the movie along. It didn't really do anything to show
but it was so
character
cool,
growth. It didn't really
and
do
they
anything
wanted it
to
there
make
because
the
like
plot any more different or better or show anything that needed to be shown. It just kind of was there because
it's also a really good exercise to give yourself, to be like, how can I condense these two scenes in a clever way, in a good way, where I'm not taking away from the story. You become a better writer when giving yourself those limits, because you end up having to work within those constraints, you know? Honey, did I cut you off? I'm sorry.
No, you didn't cut me off. I just thought Colin was about to say something because he unmuted. Oh, okay. All right.
Did I unmute? I was just unmuted, I think.
Oh, okay.
No, it's just because I felt like you had a thought that you were gonna finish. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I didn't have. Like you said what I was gonna say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine. Anyway, yeah. So with that said, let's just, I guess, move on to the next point. They say, well, what is this?
But yeah, guys, just to be clear, like we're not like being like, oh, wink, wink, all of you that got huge scripts. We're just saying, like, in the future, we should really try to stick to those constraints as much as possible and learn to work around them. And, you know, and it will make us better writers, putting those limits on ourselves, because it will force us to work with what we have, you know?
Yeah, and it'll be forced to like work more like how you're gonna have to work later on anyway. So it's better to start now than to wait and to have to like mold yourself into that. If you're actually,
because in the future,
get better and better at the craft. If you actually want to do screenwriting stuff, then you need to like start getting into the habit of how they do it professionally already, instead of waiting and then being like, oh, now I have to change the whole way I do things because, you know, because they said I have to kick out a whole scene or something like that. Like, you should already be thinking like that. That's how I like to look at it anyway. You have anything else, honey?
no, good.
Okay. All right. So the next point is just, he said, like, you want to think critically. He said it's good to think critically about everything, because in his book, we were already thinking critically about his stuff. We were already like, I don't think he's right. I think that only counts if you're doing a family-friendly movie or something like that.
And sometimes Coda would go a little overboard, and I'd have to be like, honey, remember the context. We got into like big debates because we would play devil's advocate with each other, and we'd just be like, okay, what about this perspective and that perspective and that perspective? And we were just like going back and forth because we wanted to look at it through all angles and understand it as best we could. Like, how would this work in this scenario, in that scenario? Because some things he says don't work. We were like, wait a minute. Yes, it can. But we understand what he meant, because at that time, especially, there are very few examples of it being done well.
Yeah, like back in early 2000s, they had a lot more simple stories usually. Like, it wasn't as many complex characters and stuff like that.
The ones that didn't get as much screen time or notoriety.
Yeah. And so we were like, well, at the time, he's probably right. And also, he's a specs writer, so he's doing it just to sell the scripts. And maybe simplicity is better to make a pitch. So maybe it's easier to sell if you have something simple to explain, instead of trying to explain something for 30 minutes. And then they lose interest if it's too complex, even if it's a really good movie. And then there's,
again,
but later in the book, he said, think critically about everything. He's glad if you're looking at all this stuff and you're thinking like, no, that's not right. That's not how it is. And he said, do that with everything. Do that with rules about screenwriting. Do that with rules about how to make a film. Do that with ideas, your ideas, other people's ideas. Do it with your scripts, other people's scripts. Do it with films that have been made. What could they have done better? What could they have done differently?
Especially the films that you love the most and you think are perfect, like, look at them critically and try to get them.
Because even no matter how good something is, it can always be better. Like, there's not something that's just like, there's nothing that can be better in this. It's everything.
Especially your work.
Every single thing they touched is amazing.
What? No way. There's stuff like that all the time where I'm just like, I'm not changing a goddamn thing. It's perfect the way it is. But I mean, everyone has their own style. So some people like to fuck with things.
But that's the thing though, like, that doesn't exist. Like, it can be better. You just don't
want
to
change. We're not saying that we're not saying
like, it could be really good.
It's good enough. No, sometimes it's perfect, and if you change it, it actually downgrades it.
Well, that's the thing. We're just saying that look at things critically in the sense of, you know what, I like it the way it is. But if I could see how maybe one or two things could work, could be different, and maybe it could be better in some ways.
But when it comes to art, it's all perspective anyway. So a change could actually make it worse and not be
right. But then you can look at it critically after you make the change and go, nah, actually that made it worse. Let me go back.
Exactly.
But that still doesn't mean that the original was perfect.
Yeah, he's just saying don't look at everything as it's perfect, it needs no changes. You can still love something and still think it's perfect in your eyes and still think this is, what you want to put out into the world and be like, this is the best I think it can be. And I think
You could see anything as perfect if you want. I mean, I don't or have that opinion. I think both are viable.
No,
Right,
but
that doesn't mean
saying.
that it
He's
actually is
saying,
perfect. That's the point. Like,
he's not
look
saying
at it
he's
like
not
it's perfect.
saying,
That's
honey,
one
I
thing.
think what I'm trying to say, honey, was what she's trying to, what I'm saying is, yeah, you can look at something as perfect. What they're saying is don't, this is perfect. Don't ignore some flaws here and there that it might have, because everything has little holes. Even the best thing, there's like one thing that could be better or one thing that couldn't. That doesn't mean you have to change it. That doesn't mean changing it's going to make it better. Sometimes changing it's going to make it worse. Sometimes those little holes are necessary for the overall story, or are just not, you just can't change them without making it more complicated and more overly and just overthinking it or overdoing it or over explaining it. Sometimes it doesn't need to. Sometimes you don't need to.
I disagree. I think no matter what you do, you can always make something better. I think you can make it as best you can, and you can say, well, I've made it as best I can, I think, and I'm going to leave it alone, and it's good enough, which is fine. But you can always make something better. It's never perfect. It's never going to be perfect. You can look at it like it's perfect, but that doesn't mean that it's.
But I see what Sarah's saying as well, because there are movies where I'm like, holy crap, this is the closest thing to perfect it could be. Like, right. but I see
even
your
in those
point
films,
as well.
There's still something,
exactly.
Even if it's a minor little thing that you could maybe change to make it better.
Exactly. Like Lord of the Rings, Back to the Future, some of my favorite movies of all time. There are things that I'm like, yeah, that right there, that could change. But I love those movies, and they're the closest to perfect that I think my opinion is. But I understand both sides of that, because I feel like sometimes when you look for flaws in everything, not every flaw can be fixed.
Okay, but the whole point of it is just to think about things critically. It's not meaning like necessarily change the stuff. It's just look at it critically. How could it maybe have been improved? If you don't think there's any improvements that could have been made, that's fine. But at least look at it critically to see how it could have been made better, because that'll make your own ideas better.
Look at it, for example, we have the big habit of, especially when we create something, of looking at it with a lot of passion, with a lot of pride, because we made it, which is fair. Sometimes we need to put ourselves, we need to take a minute and we need to look at it from an outsider's perspective, and we need to look at it as if someone else wrote it, and look at it critically and take our emotions and our personal feelings and our convictions away from it, or our perspective, because we wrote it. So we're going to see things that maybe the person reading it won't see it. And that's also another note, but I feel like it ties into
the next note, actually. Yeah. Try to look at the script as if someone was reading it for the first time. So the ones that you write yourself, you want to read it as in well, let me pretend that I don't know the backstory of my character. Let me pretend that I don't know what's going on or what I meant by this. Let me read it and see if it comes across the way I wanted it to, because sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes if you're reading it as a first-time person, you're not going to see everything that the person writing it saw.
Because what's obvious to you, because you wrote it and you see the perspective of the person and you see the backstory, and you can read into it more because you wrote it. So it's hard to make that distinction. Can I read into it because it's obvious, because it's there, or can I read into it because I wrote it and I know this character back up and down, inside and out? And that's hard. Honestly, I feel like that is so hard to not put our bias, because there's no such thing as an unbiased opinion. We're all going to be shaped by some perspective, some thought, something that some opinion. Even if it's deep down, it's going to affect us in some way. So sometimes it's really, really hard for us to put that aside and look at it from an objective third-party point of view, because deep down we kind of get it more than someone who is reading it for the first time. But we really need to try to do that. And if we feel like just to be sure, get someone who hasn't read it before. Don't tell them what you meant. Don't tell, and multiple people is best, because sometimes one person won't understand and the other will. Get multiple people, show them your scripts, and see what the majority is saying. If the majority doesn't get this one thing that you think is obvious, like happened in one of mine, when I was like showing Coda, he was like, well, you know this, but I don't. There was like a scene where like I was explaining, oh, because this is how she feels. And I was like, well, I didn't get that from the story, from that scene. And so I was like, oh, wow, I thought it was obvious because, you know, I had written that character and I had seen that moment play out in my head. So I thought it was that what she was feeling, what she was interpreting was obvious, but it wasn't in the script. So at the end of the day, you have to like get multiple people. And if the majority doesn't get that, you have to be like, okay, I guess I didn't explain it as well, you know, but it's hard. It's really hard to read it objectively is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like the next point was, we already said it, make every scene intentional. So every scene should be moving the plot forward or showing character growth or character moments or some kind of cool way to show exposition or whatever you're doing. The scene should be intentional for the story. It shouldn't just be there because you need to fill time. Like we were saying, like it needs to, everything should be in there for a reason.
Everything should move the story along, even the dialogue. Like when we were watching The Social Network together, there was dialogue that was like just them talking or just them joking around, having a regular conversation, but that conversation was moving the plot along. That conversation was creating character growth and development and letting us see their personalities more and their dynamic more. So even a conversation that seemed unintentional, that seemed just like two guys talking, was showing us who they were as characters, how their dynamic was, how they thought, how they felt about a certain thing, you know, their perspectives. So even that was intentional.
Yep. Then the next point is, he was saying this and I feel this way. I don't know how many of you guys do, but most people, when they're creating something, they end up looking at it, like he said, when you will probably hate your script after you reread it the first time. You'll probably hate it and be like, this is awful. This isn't what I was going for. I thought this is going to be easy. I had all the ideas in my head and then I wrote it out and this sucks. And then he said, just to take a breather, leave it somewhere. Don't think about it for a week. Come back to it with a fresh mind and look at it objectively and then start rewriting it to make it better. What worked?
Because we have the habit of overcompensating and putting too much or trying too hard to fix something.
Right. And so it's better to like come back later and then with a clear, fresh mind and be like, okay, so what worked, what didn't? At least you have the whole story written out so that you got a big hard part out of the way. Now it's just going back and refining it to make it better, to make it make more sense, to make it do what you wanted it to do in your head.
And it's okay to hate your first draft, because I feel like when we see that first draft after a while, we're like, oh my gosh, this is garbage. I'm a terrible writer. I suck at this. This is horrible. Like, it's okay. You're going to hate it. You're supposed to hate it because you're supposed to see like how you can make it better. And you're supposed to see all the little flaws that need to be fixed. And you're supposed to see all the little holes that need to be filled, you know?
I disagree, because when I write music, I love it. And I go, this is perfect. I love what I wrote here, or poetry. The same thing, my short drafts, even though I go back and want to make them better, I still have that, like, I have a few weird, like, satisfaction after. If I do a good job acting, it's the same thing. I'm like, yeah, I liked it. And if I don't like something, I'm like, yeah, I really didn't like that. So
yeah,
I think
that's totally cool. Like feeling proud about how you got it accomplished and liking it is cool. It's just like he was saying, like for a lot of people, the way they go about it is like they read
hate
it,
it,
hating it. Yeah.
I spent many years with that, so I understand. It took me like 10 years.
Yeah, a lot of people look at it, give up because they look at their first draft and they give up because they see how bad it was and they think that, oh, what's the point? Like, it's going to be garbage. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how how to make this better, you know, you feel overwhelmed by it. A lot of people feel that way and end up giving up on their first try because of that, or end up giving up on an idea because their first draft sucked and because they feel like they can't make the story work, or they can't find what they're looking for. So that's what we mean, that a lot of people go through that. Not everyone. Some people find confidence more in their stuff, and like you said, you can still love something and see that it has flaws and want to fix it. But some people just go the other route. Raphael said, I think there's a difference in doing something with an aim to learn, because even if it's good, you always have room for improvement. Yeah, I feel like you can love I agree with that. I feel like you can love something and you can be proud of it, and you can still be like, well, I feel like I can make it better if I want to, or I feel like this could be better, or I feel like that could be better.
I think
But
the main
sometimes
point he was
people
making
don't
is
want to mess
that
with it.
I think the main point he was making is that, like, in the book is like, you have an idea of how you want it to be in your head when you first start out. Like, you imagine it, especially if you're making the film, not just the script. You imagine it a certain way, and once you start making it and you see, like, this isn't coming out the way I thought it was in my head, don't freak out, because, like, it's going to happen. Like, it's not going to come out exactly as you pictured it. It's not going to be as perfect as you thought. But with your script, when you first think of it and then you write it out and you go back to it and you're like, oh, this isn't even how I thought it was going to be, you can actually improve it. You can make it better. You can change the things that didn't work when you reread it. And then, like, because sometimes you'll have an idea that works, and then you'll go back through the whole story and you'll be like, oh, that one scene works, but it doesn't work with the rest of the story, so I need to kick it out. And that's what a lot of these things mix together to make like a
and it's good for us to have that idea, because not everyone, like Sarah said, but a lot of people feel that way. And it can be frustrating when you have this amazing idea in your head, and when you write it down, you're like, holy crap, this isn't as good as I thought it would be, or I don't know how to get this to be exactly the way I want it to be, or how I put it in my head. It's frustrating. It's hard. It makes you doubt yourself. It makes you afraid that you don't know how to do something, or feel like maybe your idea isn't that good if you're not able to portray it the way you want. It's just a lot. So he just means, like, be okay with not getting it right on the first try. That is human nature. That is normal. You working on something is what's going to make you better. The more you write, the more you rewrite, that's going to make your script better and better and better and better. Like, that's why a lot of writers, when they are working with a publisher, they have an editor working with them, because the editor will help them make, and they have multiple drafts. And each draft, the editor will make notes and notes. And you have to have those multiple drafts. I remember even in school when we were learning writing, the teacher would give us a writing exercise, and she would tell us that she wanted at least 3 drafts minimum of the story. And when we would write it the first time, we already thought, but this is good. What can I change in it? You know, I remember being young and thinking that, like, I don't get, like, I think I did a good job. Like, I don't think there's anything to change. And she would say, like, go back, do it again. I want a second draft. And so I reread it like 3 or 4 times. I remember rereading it multiple times. And then I was like, wait, okay, this could be better. This could be written better. And I just kept, and then I had my second draft. And then she would make me do it again, and the third draft, and the third draft. So having an editor, having someone to help you take notes is necessary sometimes, because of that. Because sometimes what we think works here, an outsider could be like, I think this is unnecessary. I think this is filler, or I think that you can do better here, or give us suggestions.
That's true. Yeah, you do need like a second opinion or a third opinion or fourth opinion. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, especially if you really, it's like, my thing is, like, get it to a point where it's like, okay, this is decent, and then show it to somebody, or like have it. Yeah, it's always like weird when the first person you show any kind of writing or acting piece you do, they're both personal.
Yeah, it's scary because it's personal. So it's hard to be and you're being vulnerable in a way, because you're showing them something that's personal to you and you took time with. So it's hard. I feel like getting multiple people is good because sometimes what one person won't get, the other will. Like Coda had an idea and he showed it to me of a story and I read it and I was like, oh, this is what it is. Like immediately I got it. And he was like, wow, you got it like in the beginning. And I was like, yeah, but it's still good. And then he showed it to another person. They were like, oh, wow, that was so surprising. I didn't get that at all. And he was
It was like a short story that had a twist ending, and Priscilla figured it out in the middle, and the other person I showed it to was like, you should add more things to make it more obvious that that's what it is, because that felt like it came out of nowhere. And so I was like,
no, it didn't.
On this because it's too drastic. I don't want to make it too obvious, but I also don't want to leave it too aloof to where it feels like that. So
I thought it was super obvious. And I thought it was super obvious because he gave like multiple hints to it throughout. And if he put more, it would have been really like, get it. But I was like, I think you need to.
One of the things I really liked about the book, or like the first part of Save the Cat, was like his recommendation for when you're writing the log lines, like go up to people and ask them and just like give them just say it and see what they think. Like I thought that was a good recommendation. I mean, not now, but like, you know, in a time when you can do that pretty easily. Like I feel like that is like, it's a great way to like actually get like a random sample. Like, and you'd probably want to like drive around, you know, like different states, you know, like go to different countries. Well, I mean, not that that's feasible, but maybe like, you know, like
what we can do, for example, Colin,
and ask them like, you know, get in like a video game, meet people like in when you're playing video games, like meet people from other countries or something, and like message them and say, hey, does this movie sound good? And then there you go, now you got a sample or whatever.
What I was thinking of
doing
to
like go up to stranger, like in the book he said to like go up to strangers and give them your log line, your idea for the movie, and see what their reactions are. Are they like, oh, that's cool, that sounds awesome, or they're like, eh.
Yeah,
what I was thinking is doing it in the group. Sorry.
I have to go, like, but I wanted to say before I go, like, that another thing I was thinking was interesting is kind of like what we were talking about. So there's a lot of you know, there are a lot of things that people talk about in terms of mindset and how it relates to like creativity and stuff. And one of the biggest things is like kind of this growth versus fixed mindset. I'm sure like that's a very common thing that people say. Growth mindset is like, oh, I'm a person who can like I am by nature going to grow as a person through practice. But fixed mindset is like, I am bad at this, or I am good at this, stuff like that. And like, I think that like a lot of it is just like kind of shifting the human mind into the growth mindset, shifting it into this mindset of like what I write isn't really, it's not like a reflection of me. It's more like a reflection of my skill at the present moment. And then what happens is in the future, that skill gets like, just because brains adapt to things, the skill, you know, improves and all that stuff. And so like what, you know, when you have stuff on the page, like it's probably better, or like, I'm not saying better as in like, it's wrong to hate it, but I mean like, it's like, it's sort of like, there's an argument to be made to like, just kind of recognize that it's you being who you are at the present moment, but in the future, there's always a possibility of improvement, and like kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Like keep it as this like positive thing. Like imagine the future like spreading out before you and saying like, oh, I can, you know, go on the steps to be a, you know, really good writer. And I think like when I've done like I've practiced stuff like poetry before too, and I think that poetry especially is something that like you like, especially just creative things, like being creative in any way, you kind of need to be able to develop your voice, like your creative voice, in a way that like, you know, what you think in your mind is connected with what you're doing with your like hands or with your, you know, words or whatever. Because emotions are like when you're writing poetry, when you're making a movie, like you're just trying to translate your emotions into something, or you're just trying to translate like emotions in your mind into something. And I'm taking a creative writing course this semester, and one of the things my professor said was like, there's some people who like read and write, or like they read as critically well as they do as they write. And like it's really like the best writers, or like not like necessarily the best writers, but really good writers can sort of like can feel what's right, or like can feel what they're doing and what works as they're writing. And it's sort of like a journey to to make it so that the emotional, like unconscious brain reaches that like, unconscious like writing thing where you can just write and have it feel normal. And I think that's kind of like where we're all headed on this. Like we're just trying to get to a point where writing movies feels normal and feels like instinctive and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that. But
yeah,
That was awesome, Colin. That was actually a really, really good tip. And I was gonna say something similar, but you expanded on it really well, more than I probably could have.
okay, well, see you
So
guys.
I'll
Thanks,
see
Colin.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good night.
You too.
But that
Have
was
a good
another
night.
thing, that we were talking about was hopefully the more we write as well, we learn to see it as we take it less personally as well. Like we learn to see it as, like he said, this is something, and like Sarah said, we can still appreciate it in the moment for what it is and be happy with it and be proud about it. But that doesn't mean that we can't look at it months or years down the line and be like, wow, I'm a lot better, or I can make it a lot better, and I think that's pretty cool too, like knowing where you are, but still wanting to be better, still working on being better in general.
Yeah, like that's the mindset we need to all have, especially when we actually start making shorts and films. Like the first ones aren't going to be the best, and then you work harder next time to make it better, and you look at how you can improve, and then the next one and the next one, and then a few years down the line, you can look back at like a few years ago and be like, oh wow, that's how we were back then. Holy crap, that was.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't give your all the first time, because you're in the belief of, oh, it's probably not going to be that great the first time. That doesn't mean you shouldn't give your all. You shouldn't dedicate yourself, and that doesn't mean you shouldn't be proud of it when it's over. It just
means
means
you're
that
gonna look back at it probably later on and be like, oh wow, like this is a lot. I've improved a lot since then, and I can see it in my work. Like if I look back at my oldest YouTube videos, I'm just like, this is crazy how worse they are than like what I can do now. And I'm still not even that great. Like I still want to improve. So I just think it's a good mindset to have, like Colin said, to have that growing mind instead of the like, oh, I suck. And then just that. Instead, looking back on the stuff and being proud of it at the time, and then looking back on it and seeing how much you've improved since.
Sorry, Sarah, what'd you say?
I'll say I definitely agree with the growth mindset is a lot better. It's easy to get like stuck in like old patterns and then having to like dig out why. It's never ending. But yeah, the other problem now is like, now that you know that and you have the growth mindset, that if you work on stuff, it just consistently gets better. There's a new problem that comes in where it's just like you always have to pick and choose where you put your time and what skills that you're improving upon. That's now what stresses me out.
Right. No, yeah, that makes sense, because you're trying to do a lot of different things. So
yeah, because it's like I went from like not having access to a lot of things to having access to a lot of things and loving them. So, which is very cool, and it's a great problem to have. So I'm not going to complain.
No, but it's understandable, because at the end of the day, you're like, I want to be better and I want to dedicate myself and I want to grow, but I can't overdo it to the point where I'm hyper focused on like growing and growing and growing, and I'm not happy where I am, or I'm not learning where I am. I'm just focused on
if you're not happy.
well.
I find that like unhappiness or like a sense of unease is telling you something though. So if if I ever feel unhappy, I'm like, what is this trying to tell me? It's like anger, it tells you something.
But I feel like,
happy with it, that might mean you don't like it. You know what I mean? Like that's
like someone like James, for example, when he talks about like James when he talks about how he is really hard on himself and he is very critical on himself because he wants it to be perfect and he wants it to be good. It's wonderful to have that drive and to want it to be better, but you can't let that make you stuck. You can't be stuck in, I need to make it better, I need to make it perfect, I need to make, because it's sometimes you're not going to get to that perfection that you want right away. Sometimes you're not going to get to it this time around. That doesn't mean it's not great. That doesn't mean it's not worth putting out there into the world. Sometimes it's not going to be exactly the exact perfect amazing thing you imagined in your head, and that's okay. And that's also a hard balance to find.
I'm gonna move on to the next point though. So the next one was, we already talked about this earlier, but not earlier today, but earlier in the meetings. But movies, he says movies are shown through pictures, not words. So explain your stuff more through action than through dialogue. And I think that's a good tip to have. Like, you can show so much more from just a few simple actions than from somebody like having a huge conversation to explain what you're trying to mean. Sometimes it depends on what it is, of course, but he gave the example in the book, like, you can show that the guy is like, they're having marriage troubles by the guy when they're
looking
walking
at another
car,
woman.
he looks at another woman, and then the wife looks at him like kind of mad, like as if like he does it all the time, instead of them having a 2-page or 3-page long fight about it, where they're having a discussion, fighting about, like, an argument, I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just
which is
doing basically
redundant.
show don't tell, but also like a tip that I have is sometimes when we're writing, we end up catching ourselves like, oh, he feels this. Sometimes we need to stop, and this is what works for me. What works for me is when I'm trying to get an emotion across or a thought across, or I close my eyes and I try to imagine the scene playing out in my head. Instead of trying to write that scene, like, she feels this, and try to explain it, I close my eyes and I try to envision it and see how it would happen in real life, how I would see this scene and be able to see everything that she's feeling through that scene, either through her words or her facial expressions or body language or whatever. I feel like that helps me more, because sometimes we're so fixated on, okay, I have to have this back and forth to show this emotion, or this thought process, or this thought pattern, or I have to over describe the scene. And sometimes we forget to stop and look at our script, at our story, as a story through pictures. That is what it is, through human interaction, and just get ourselves out of that book mindset and into the movie mindset, is how I describe it. So
Yeah,
what I do
like,
is that
basically, like, some movies would do well to have them argue and have a fight, but if it feels like a scene that's just there to explain that they're having marriage problems, that's when it's
Then
not
it doesn't make sense. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And that's probably when
That was
it's
just
like, that
redundant.
doesn't belong, like, because it's just to do that, then you should probably find a different way to show it, which is what he
so
was.
when you read your script, just like when we were talking about putting yourself in the outsider's perspective, when you're reading it as someone who just read it for the first time, read it as if you're seeing it in your mind, every little interaction, every little line. Say your lines out loud. We've said this a million times, I know, but it really does help. Like, act out your scene, especially for people like Sarah and Brent who are actors. This is so much easier for them, because I feel like I can never get the right way of saying it, or I feel silly sometimes playing it out, like walking around the house trying to fantasy, but close your eyes and play it out, say the dialogue out loud, do that back and forth. It's okay, people think you're crazy, maybe lock stuff in the room so no one can hear you, but just imagine that scene, go through that scene and see if it works, see if it flows, see if it makes sense, if it's just there to like show a point. If you're watching that movie sitting down and you're seeing that in the screen, would you be like, oh wow, this makes sense, this is good? Or would you be like, oh wow, the scene just seems like exposition, or the scene just feels like filler, or the scene doesn't feel natural, that kind of thing. So that's a tip that I have that works for me.
Yeah,
not a bad tip. I'll
in
try
the
that.
book, he was saying, like, if you only had pictures, you didn't have words, you didn't have movement, you just had a series of pictures. I mean, they would create movement depending on how many pictures you have to make it. But if you didn't have sound, basically, how would you get that same message across? And that's a good way to try to figure out how to show something very simply,
Especially.
very, very concisely, and very quickly, that you would have taken a few paragraphs or more to explain otherwise.
Or how would you abbreviate, if we're talking about dialogue, how would you express to someone, like, let's say you're having an argument and you want to get your point across. Coda used to say that I hate Twitter, but Coda used to say that I should be on Twitter because it would help me condense my thoughts better in 140 characters, which is so true. I suck at condensing my thoughts. So I keep imagining, like, if I were having a conversation with someone, how would I best explain what I'm feeling, go through that dialogue in my head. And sometimes I'll just be in the shower. Like, I have social anxiety, so I don't know if I can relate. We're about to have like a big social interaction. Sometimes I'm moving.
You're cutting
And
out.
I'm in the shower, kind of going through different scenarios. Oh, sorry. Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay. So, like, because I have social anxiety, whenever we're going into a social situation, sometimes I will be in the shower and I'll be going through certain scenarios in my head. Like, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if they ask me this? What if they ask me that? Because it just helps me to have something in my head so I don't ramble on, because you guys know me long enough by now. You know, I tend to ramble, especially when I'm nervous or I can't explain what I'm trying to say. So I do that sometimes, and I think that this might help as well, where you're trying to get a dialogue across and you're trying to make it flow naturally, but also dynamically in a way that is intentional and is straight to the point. Practice different ways of saying it as if you had to explain this to someone or you were having a conversation with someone. Practice that dialogue and see if there are better ways to say the same thing. Does that make sense? It's like condensing it down. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Like, show don't tell. Like, acting is all about, like, yes, you're saying dialogue, but it's in the underlying inflection, the movement, the actions, the commitment, being in the moment, all of that. So
yeah, a lot about the subtext, not just the actual what they're saying.
Yeah, what's it saying underneath? Exactly.
What are they meaning by what they're saying? That kind of thing.
Yeah, and people get really scared by the word subtext, and they think it's this complicated thing. They're like, "Oh my goodness, only the best writers can do it." It really is not. It really is not. It's just about,
make it complicated, but it's simple.
Yeah, like Sarah's getting
how
better and better
they're
at this.
saying something, but how are they actually? What do they mean by it? What is the hidden saying underneath what they're actually literally saying?
What is the intention?
It's even better
what
when
is
you have like, you can, if you get really good at subtext, you can have multiple subtext.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you start getting into like those type of like the really intense movies versus like I find like it's like different shows and movies like with different like obvious subtext, and then there's like movies like Inception where the subtext level game is insane.
Yeah.
Or like Game of Thrones, where they're just like going back and forth, and there's like a ton of subtext.
Oh my gosh, there's a scene in Game of Thrones that we were watching.
Talked about this before, but yeah.
Yeah, we were just watching. It was the back and forth between these two, and they were kind of like threatening each other, but politely. You know, it's so much easier to do that with a British accent. But I just feel like they're so polite yet rude at the same. It's amazing. But they were basically threatening each other, but they were doing it in a way where they were having a conversation, just like a back and forth, and it was compelling and interesting, and there was so much subtext underneath that. You could tell like how angry they were at each other, how they were like sniping at each other, threatening each other, and it came across through that little back and forth, their entire dynamic, their entire feeling, their entire plan, their character motivation. It was amazing.
Yeah, very, very good at the first seasons of that show. But anyway, let's move on. Another thing we thought that was a good point that he made, which is kind of not really like a point about screenwriting, it's just about in general, is he was a guy, he wrote a TV pilot, but he still worked as a production assistant. Even though he wanted to be a writer, he still worked as other things.
And even after his show got approved,
one of the lower tier jobs on a set. And he was still doing that even after writing like a successful TV pilot and a successful feature film. He's still doing other things in the industry just because he's not like putting himself like, oh well, I don't need to do that anymore because I wrote this thing, so I don't need to try it anymore to get these little jobs.
I've already made it because I made my movie, I made my show, so I'm already a writer. I don't need to do these like little jobs anymore. Like we know so many writers or actors that actors, like we know so many people, especially watching, not know like no, but like we know of so many people, and we've watched so many videos of celebrities or like people who, not
Like
celebrities,
from behind the scenes or interviews,
yeah, behind the
talking
scenes.
about how they were like working on set, even though they were trying to get an acting job, they were like working as a camera operator or a production assistant
Or when they were trying to write a script, they were on a show as like a secondary character or like a side character that would appear in like some episodes. But while they were doing that show, they were writing every single day. When they came home, they would just write and have their scripts ready.
Yeah. And the point is like, don't try not to get the mindset of being like, I'm better than this, or I'm above whatever you can get. Just try to get whatever you can. Like,
well, my thing is like, even if you have like the best, hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
We can hear you.
Okay, so even if you guys have like you have a #1 acting job, you still could come in as a PA. That would really fuck with you. Just like it's like no, but I'm serious. Like imagine.
No, it's good. It's humbling yourself so you don't forget.
Like, yeah, I know I'm PAing today.
Yeah, you humble yourself. You humble yourself. You remember how much work a set actually is, because I feel like sometimes when we are acting or doing any kind of job or writing, sometimes we end up forgetting all the other processes that go into getting that movie made, because we get distracted with that main part.
Like even if I directed a feature film that was super successful, I still would hope that I don't get the mindset of being like, I'm not going to work as a production assistant on someone else's project. I'm a famous director now. Like I don't want to ever get to that point, because it's always good to have a mindset of like humbling yourself and being like, I'm just here to help. I'm here to do it. And if more people want me to direct another movie, sure, but I'm going to keep growing.
No, that doesn't mean that you have to like, you've made a ton and you have to constantly be like taking smaller jobs all the time. It just means that at the end of the day, you should never, what he was saying was never stay stagnant. While you're working on your script, find another job in production for you to do. While you're acting on this, start writing in your spare time. Like, because we can get complacent, we can get comfortable easily, and a lot of people who do end up getting lost or not getting as many jobs because they think, oh well, now I'm gonna sit here and wait for my next big break to come,
And instead of going out there, meeting new people, helping new people, and like making more connections, and
you're growing too. You're growing, constantly growing.
And maybe that person that I PA for, after I make a director's film, they see my film, they like it, and the next movie they make, the producer goes, hey, you worked as a PA in my project, you want to direct something? Like, it all comes together if you keep like putting yourself out there and helping other people, which actually leads into the next point. Oh, sorry.
Oh, wait, Sarah, what were you saying?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And like, especially as an actor, there's like the dual entendre, because if you're fully acting, the crew doesn't exist. So that's the one thing that like I always remember to like for really good acting is just like that you, while you're in the scene, you're fully committed. But it's like, it's a weird one, but it's good to always throw your ego away, especially in creative fields, because if you have too much ego, you can't see as clearly or play as well. Yeah, from my opinion.
Yeah, and then you're like kind of being, like it also makes you kind of have like a condescending outlook on everyone else, because you're kind of like, I'm above you. Or
you forget how much work it takes, and sometimes you don't even do it on purpose, but you not knowing all the little facets, sometimes you knowing that will make you appreciate it better, will make you work better, will make you understand the time constraints. It'll make you a better actor, it'll make you a better director, it'll make you just better. at the end of the day. James, you're pretty quiet. Do you have anything to comment on any of these? Jisoon, anything?
Raphael, V.
No, not me.
Does anybody have anything to comment on anything we're talking about yet?
I feel like Raphael and V are the only ones that are like commenting in the comments in secret.
No, they're doing it.
No, they're in the chat over there, quietly giving their opinions.
Just listen.
Just listening, enjoying. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, that was going to lead into my next point anyway, which was he said, whenever he's giving a pitch, he's a spec script writer. So he tries to sell his scripts, but when he's trying to meet with the production executives and stuff like that, he doesn't just go in being like, here's what I need. Here's what I want. Here's why you should hire me. Here's why you should take my script. What he does is he tries to put himself in the other person's shoes, in the production executive shoes, and he asks himself, what do they get out of the interaction with me? What do they get out of this? What do they want from me? And how can I give them what they want without like just going in to get what I want? Like, how can I help them, and why, and how should I work to, what am I trying to say? How should I make it easier for them so that they can also make it easier for me? Because it's a back and forth. It's not just a take, it's a give and take. So you need to like put yourself in the other person's shoes. They're a production executive. They've probably heard a bunch of spec scripts. Like, even if you think yours is amazing, they might not like it. And you shouldn't just be like, well, you suck and you don't like what I like, so screw you. You should be like, well, okay, I get that, because
Or you should show what makes yours stand apart for them. Like, mine is brilliant, so of course I'll be interested. Well, why? Show him why it would interest him in particular. Like, one of the videos that we recommended, I think it was like 16 or 20 or something, was screenwriter tips. And these were from people all across the board in the industry. And there was one guy who specifically talked about how people would email him their scripts all the time, talking about how brilliant they were, how brilliant the script was, and blah, blah, blah. But very few of them actually told him why they thought he was the best person to send that script to, why they thought he would be interested in reading their script, why they thought he would think their story was interesting. Because why are you sending it to me? Why me? You know, am I just another bunch of the people you're randomly sending it out to?
Yeah, his point was like, what if, like, I don't know what he does, but like, let's say his production company makes horror films mainly, and you have these people saying, oh, I have the best script ever, but like, if it's not a horror script, it's probably not going to be for them, and that probably means that they're just sending it to everybody and they didn't look into who they're sending it to. And they're like, because like, if you had a comedy, maybe you could be like, I know you usually do horror, but I think this comedy will work with you because of this, this, and that. And there's like, it shows you've done your research on the company. It shows why you think maybe they actually might want that script. And it doesn't just show that you're just like, this is amazing and you should make it just because like, companies have different ways of doing things. Disney is known to make more family friendly films. So you shouldn't send some really serious, dark, R-rated movie to Disney execs and expect them to pick it up and want to do something with it. Like, it's like that. And it's not just about scripts. It's also about like, even people who have tried to join this group, we've seen in the Craigslist ad, we obviously can tell they just go through and send basically their resume to every single gig or job that's listed on Craigslist, because our thing has nothing to do with like an actual gig, and they're still sending it as in like, I'll be great on your productions, I'll be great to help out, let me know how much the pay is, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, if you even took the time to read our listing, you would see that we don't even say there is pay, we don't even say there is productions, it's a study group. So like they say, just make sure you're taking the time to really know
Who you're selling your script to
and why they might like it. And you can do that with everyone. Like, even if you want to send it to everybody, at least look individually at every single person and see why each person might like it.
Because that will make you stand out and pique their interest, because like, oh, they took the time to know, to like want to pique my interest, to know who I am, to do their research.
Yeah, like I know you guys have made this kind of movie in the past, and I like that, and I like this, and
That is a good way of doing it. I find that like when you know nothing, the best and fastest way to learn is to just try a bunch of shit and fucking face plan it until you land something and figure some shit out.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but we're talking about wasting people's time. Like, we got a bunch of those emails in between, and like we were already answering a million emails. Like, you're wasting our time and yours, because at the end of the day, well, not yours because you're just sending it out to everybody, but that was one less person you needed to send out to, one less minute of your life that you would have wasted, and you wasted our time as well because it wasn't even for that. So like,
plus I feel like it doesn't work. Like I don't know, maybe it does, but I don't feel like that kind of thing works where they're just randomly saying, I feel like I'm great for it, because another person like who was
they don't
saying,
know
yeah,
you. They don't know. Of course, everyone's great for it. Everyone's saying that they're great for it. What makes you stand out?
yeah, like somebody was like saying like that they were super interested in this. So we called them and we were like, you gave us your number, like you know what this is, you blah blah blah. And they were all like, oh no, what is this? I don't know. I just sent it out to everybody. What is this exactly? And then we told him what it was. And he's like, oh, never mind. Oh, I thought it was a job. So he wasn't actually interested. And it's like, well, that kind of thing isn't going to get you a job anywhere if you're like, I don't even know what this job is. Who are you?
Because then people especially if people in Hollywood talk, because then they're gonna be like, oh, this guy, he came, oh, I got this email from this dude, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember him. He was sending me a bunch of random emails.
If you do like enough stupid shit, you just get known as the stupid guy, but then everybody knows who you are. So as long as you're good, like
yeah, like if I was hiring some people for an actual crew and I was posting on Craigslist and I got somebody and I gave them a call and they say, I don't even know which one this is. What is it? Then obviously
I'd hang up immediately. I'd just be like, whatever.
Yeah, like, okay, have a good day. Like I'm gonna call somebody else who actually is interested in the story, not just going out and trying to get a job.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, no way. I wouldn't though, but that's because like I'd be like, okay, buddy. But I find that kind of shit funny. So I guess like it really is like.
Well, yeah, but if you're an executive and you have a bunch of meetings a day and you have a huge schedule and you can't waste time like that. You can't have people waste your time like that. You have so much to do. Like you don't have time to waste, you're already busy as heck. So
nobody has time to waste.
Exactly, especially people in that industry.
So I feel like that kind of thing doesn't work, and that's why it's good to at least know what you're putting yourself out there for. At least know like what it is. Take time to know what kind of project you're trying to get instead of just like applying for everything because you think it's gonna work. Like
no, because that's
because
what you can get off the top. Like that's
because
hold on, what?
It's a fast track way to find out where your type is, like where you've like find out like, oh, this works, that doesn't work, this works. So if you just like your blank slate, you know nothing, and you shoot out.
But at the end of the day,
if you
should
can
know
do
at least
that, but if you read about each thing and you kind of like know what the jobs are and you apply for all of them, at least you'll have an idea of what it was, and you can be like, even if you're like, oh yeah, which one was this? I'm sorry, I applied for a lot.
Because
at least you can like, oh yeah, I did read about that. That sounds cool.
Oh yeah, no, I've always read it. Like I've always read on everything, and then there's like you ever applied at a job that you're like, I'm not sure, I'm thinking about it, I might be a fit worth looking into. So I'll send like for me when you send out a job application, you send out a job application to have an interview. It doesn't mean that you're going to actually take the job. It means that they always say to
but you also don't want to waste the
But you should know what company you're going to try to apply for. You shouldn't just apply to every job out there and then be like, oh, this is a fast food place.
You should know.
I didn't even know it was a fast food place. I don't want to work at a fast food place. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. You got to have at least a little research to know what you're applying for. What is the job? Oh, I didn't know it was cashier. I thought I was going to be flipping burgers. Well, look at the listing. What does it say? Like that's the thing I'm talking about.
And another thing is you should know what you're like. If you're applying, let's say you want to get into Hollywood because you want to get into Hollywood. So you apply for 1 million jobs and you get a camera assistant, which let's be real, you need experience for that. But let's say you get this job. you don't know anything about it. You're not good at this job. You just applied for it because you want to get in anyway. Then you're going to be known like, oh, that guy was horrible in my production, and the word's going to get out. Like, know your strengths and weaknesses, in the sense of you don't want to waste your time and you don't want to waste the person's time. So at least know a little bit about what you're getting yourself into. If you end up sucking, but you tried your best, awesome. But if you go in blind at just because you're shooting for everything and you suck so bad and you end up with that reputation, people are going to be like, oh, that's just the guy that takes any job. And
no, you know what? I used to have that fear, and now I don't. I see it differently. Now I see it as, wow, that's the guy who was able to, go in with, that takes courage, man. That takes courage.
But so, you have to put work into it. That's the thing. A lot of people don't. A lot of people
go into
it.
Sarah, I'll say this. If you did do that and you do get a job, like let's say Sarah, you just tried to do every single job out there on Craigslist under like film and media. You just applied everything, and you ended up getting like
the best job
kind of media executive position at a radio station, and you have no idea what you're doing, but you look it up, you research it, and once you get in there, you're kind of rusty and you don't really know what you're doing, but you work at it and you get better. Sure, that's something. But if you're just applying for everything and you go in and you get the job and then you just go there and you're like, I don't know what this is, they're never going to let you work at the radio station again. Like that's
exactly. There's a difference.
That's the point.
Putting in the work and at least doing your research and doing the bare minimum and just shooting for everything and not putting in the minimum requirement. And unfortunately,
I guess like for me, I'm fine now, but I ended up like I was doing very well, and then it just like everything kind of changed on me, and then it started to like go downhill. So now I'm trying to make other moves, and hopefully one thing leads to another and gets better. But I mean, like for me, that's the best. I don't know, like I pretty much like most things I've been pretty serious about for applications, or like been interested in, but
like we said, you're a hardworking person.
Like you're putting in the effort. Like you're practicing.
You're a hardworking person. You're putting in the effort.
You're not just waiting for it to come, and you're not just applying to every acting position out there without even practicing acting. You're practicing.
Exactly. And that's the difference we're talking about.
That is good. Like, putting yourself out there is one thing, but putting yourself like without doing any research or any kind of like trying to make yourself better at it.
Or like you do research, but you don't know enough, because like say like me, I usually actually do as much research as I can, but sometimes the research isn't available. As in like I've looked up subjects and it caps out.
So Sarah, now you're just complicating things, woman. We're just saying that some people put in research, some people don't. There's gray areas.
Sarah, sometimes we gotta go outside of the internet for our research, because recently I also have a project that I'm trying to write, and I had to do some research on a cultural topic, and I can basically find zero information on it online. So now I basically have to like find actual people who know about it.
Exactly, but that's what we're saying. You're putting, but that's what we're saying. That's what we're saying. You put in effort.
Yeah, and I take chances and I go to new places.
Exactly. You put in effort.
But that's
what we're saying. You put in effort. Not everyone does.
When like you can't get the information on the internet, and then you find out, okay, all right, so who do I have to go to find out? Oh, a Japanese temple in another country. Oh, great, fantastic.
Yeah,
but to do that.
But guys, guys, I feel like you're thinking about it a little too much. Well,
no, but seriously, they'd be like, we need this, and I'd be like, could die, extra risk bonus. I'm going.
Okay, but we're just saying, some people put in the effort, some people don't. Don't waste your time. Don't waste other people's time. Boom, we're done. Let's move.
Wait a minute, Sarah. Let's say you're applying for every acting position out there, and one of the acting positions requires you to be an expert at horse riding.
I wouldn't apply to an expert at horse riding because I can't
horse ride. Exactly, that's our point, woman. That's our point. But some people do. They're just that crazy.
Some people apply for everything, even though they don't know anything about horse riding. They'll apply for that acting position that is a master horse rider, and then they go and they're like, I don't know how to ride a horse. Well,
Buddy,
then
like,
you're not going to get
how
the
to
With
ride a
some
horse
acting out
people,
of here. You're just wasting our time at casting and all this
and
other
then you
stuff.
exactly, and then you have the other extreme where, okay, if this requires horse riding, I'm going to learn how to ride a horse and I'm going to apply for it. That's different. You see the difference? We done? Good? Can we move, please? Please?
All right, let's move on. This actually leads into the point. The next point he was making was take the opportunities that you can get, even the small ones, because they'll get your foot in the door.
And I do that too.
Yes, we know,
That's
Sarah.
the
You're
good
awesome.
thing.
You're amazing. You're incredible. You're a butterfly.
That's the good thing, Sarah. Yes.
We love
There's a
you. You're
difference.
awesome.
There's a difference.
I'm
If you have the opportunity to get a small job,
Not everyone is as awesome as you, Sarah, unfortunately.
if you have the opportunity to get a small job as like
That's
a
the thing, though.
production
Sometimes you
assistant or
take a
something,
small job and like it's you're an asshole.
huh?
What?
Sometimes you take the small job and you really think he's like, all right, cool. I got a small position. I'm a PA on set, and you still end up being the most fucking professional person on set. It's not a good
Exactly.
position to be in.
And that shows to
You're
other
not.
people. Like, they'll
Yeah,
see
you're
that.
right. I need to become. You're right. I need to like keep up in my attitude and my own self confidence because
Bro,
I'm
I am
always-
not.
not
I'm
just
not that
No,
professional.
no,
If
we're not
I'm the
saying
most
that. We're
professional
not
person
saying
on
that.
set, I don't want to work
No,
with anyone else on
for
that set
acting,
ever
it's
again.
like this. For acting, it's like take every extra role extra position you can get, like that being an extra on set. Even if you don't have any lines, take any opportunity that comes your way, take it, because you never know what that'll lead to. You never know how many people will then know you and see your acting ability later.
Yeah, but what we're saying, Sarah, we're not saying that you shouldn't be confident. Of course, you should be confident, woman. We're just saying that unfortunately, not everyone is as badass and awesome and hardworking and dedicated as you. So when we're talking about annoying people who just like do whatever and don't really think about it, we don't mean you. You're awesome. You're a unicorn. We mean other people. And unfortunately, they're not as incredible as you. Hardworking, but you are awesome. We love you. That's why you're in the group, because you're hardworking and a badass and smart and dedicated. And yeah,
Thanks.
you're awesome. Everyone in this group is set apart and different and dedicated and unique in their own way. And that's why that's why you guys are here.
We appreciate all of you. You each have your unique self and your unique abilities and your take on things, and we appreciate it and we like it and we like having differences. It's good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, James, a unicorn. It's that thing that's really rare and doesn't come around a lot and is incredible and beautiful and magical.
Hey, yo, doesn't come around a lot. Doesn't come around a lot.
Ever. It's super rare. It's super rare. Remember the cartoon, The Last Unicorn? Yeah, it's like
It
that.
doesn't
There's one of those.
exist. Anyway, yes. All right, let's move
You
on.
guys have never seen The Last Unicorn? What childhood did you guys
Let's move
have?
on.
Reminds me of Charlie the Unicorn. That's the childhood I had. If you ever see
Oh,
Charlie,
it was such a dark movie, but I love it as a kid. I think it was called The Last Unicorn. I don't even remember, but it
no,
was.
that's the thing on YouTube. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's
All
just-
right, let's move on. Sorry.
All right, the next point he makes is whatever you go on, like if you do take that small opportunity and you do become an extra on set or you do become a production assistant on set, ask for referrals from people. Like, you know, you'll meet other crew members, you'll meet other extras and actors, and you'll be able to talk to them and be like, oh, what are you trying to do? What are you working on? Oh, really? Do you have anyone you can refer me to?
Have that human connection. Put yourself out there. Show that you're interested and not
Meet
just like
people,
in your own
connect
little
with
bubble.
people, and then share what you're trying to do and try to get referrals. Ask how you can help others too. Not just like, oh yeah, what can you do for me? But like, oh yeah, could I help you at all? Maybe I can recommend you to a talent agent I have, or maybe I can recommend you to a friend that does director of photography work. Maybe I can, maybe I know somebody who knows somebody who can maybe get you in the door to this other project or something like that. Always try to ask for referrals and ask how you can help others. so that they can see that you're not just in it for you only. It's a team effort.
One second.
Huh?
Hey.
She's talking to her cat, I bet.
Okay.
Yeah, he's fucking being bad. Just go.
All right.
What?
Last thing. This goes back to scripts again. So back to scripts. If you are making, well, I guess it's also for just an idea of a movie, or if you're trying to get a movie made. If you're making a pitch, make it unique and creative. Don't just have it be bland, and like try to make it as unique as possible without taking away from the story or taking away from the actual pitch. Like try to make
Now,
it sound cool. Like, why is this different? Why do you think this needs to be made? Why are you so passionate about it? You know, and
now
then,
in the book Save the Cat, you have some examples of how they pitched it, and they don't do it like exactly like that anymore, because they would actually use props and stuff. If you feel you want to do that, I feel like, you know, that'd be fun. But there are some examples there. But just make it stand out. Just make it a cool pitch. Maybe do some research on it, you know, how you can catch their
one of
attention.
the examples they gave was like there was these guys that was making, well, I don't know if this is exactly like, but one of the examples I'm gonna just say that I think it was like they were making some kind of dark movie, and so then they like lowered the lights in the room and they like did like some smoke.
Oh no, it was for Hocus Pocus, wasn't it? The pitch for Hocus Pocus. He got people dressed up as witches, and he dimmed the lights, and
he dimmed the lights, and he made like some fog and stuff to like set the mood of the pitch he was doing, which was really creative and cool. Like, and you don't have to be that unique with it, but at least try to think of like how you can make your pitch different than, because they hear pitches all the time. So you need to make it different somehow, whether you're talking to investors, production executives, trying to get a friend to help you out. Like, try to be creative with how you come about it. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions, comments?
This next semester, we're going to be reading 2 books in the book study that are related to what we're learning, but we're also going to be reading The Anatomy of Story, me, Coda, James, and whoever wants to as well. On the side, we can make that part of our individual learning.
This next semester
curriculum.
for the book study happens on Wednesdays. We will be reading some kind of book. I'm going to look through and see, but some kind of book on cinematography and some kind of book on working with actors. I think it's like there was a director that used to be an actor, and they have a really good take on how you should work with actors. And I wanted to hear like Sarah's opinions on it coming from an actor standpoint, as I'm reading it from a director standpoint, and see like how we come together and talk about it. So we'll be talking about that. And we'll be reading those kind of books. And then like Priscilla just said, we'll be also reading this book called Anatomy of Story for screenwriting, even though we're not studying screenwriting next semester, we're still going to be like reading about it and stuff.
Yeah, and that is because we're going to have like individual learning curriculum as well, like for whoever wants to delve more into whatever they want to delve more into. And whoever wants to read the book, apparently it's a really, really good book. It's one of the best. And we're going to be reading it as well. Whoever wants to get in on that. You don't have to
talk about it.
You can just read it, and we can talk about it when we can. Yeah.
Yeah, it won't be it won't be weekly like the other 2 books, but it'll
probably be like a book club. Like, you guys will read it on your own time, and when everyone is done, like constantly taking notes. Like, we take notes on every chapter and that kind of thing. And then when everyone's done, we can meet up one of the days and talk about it and give our opinions and notes and that kind of thing.
Okay.
One thing I wanted to talk about though is like today, like especially going into the next semester soon. We really need you guys to let us know if you're going to be late, and try to be on time, because waiting around for like 10 to 15 minutes for everyone to show up is very slow. And especially once we start getting new people in, we don't want to have to wait around for 15 minutes to actually begin the meeting.
At least explain beforehand, like, hey, I'm going to be a little late, or like let us know if it's an emergency.
That's fine, but we need to know. We need to know if you're going to be late. We need to know how many people are going to be late. So we don't end up waiting around. You guys know you're going to be late. Let us know.
And also because in the future,
depending on how many people are late, it also makes the ending of the meeting later. And some people like Colin, can't stay too long. So I'm sure there's going to be more people like that. And so we just need to know, when you guys can't come, when you're going to.
And soon we're also going to be hoping everything going well in the near future, we hope to be working on an actual production. And so we need people that, we know we can count on to be there in time and that kind of thing.
Yeah, if we're working on an actual production, like if we do end up working on a production next semester at the end, and we do end up doing that, we need anybody who's actually going to be on set or going to be coming in through Zoom or something to watch it from virtual. We need you guys on time. Like you can't be late during that. During the meetings, it's not as bad, but during the actual productions, that's serious, and that causes a lot of delays, which are expenses and things like that. So if we do it and you sign up for it, we're just going to let you know now, you can't be late or you will be kicked out of the production. And if we do another production and you do the same thing, you'll be kicked out of the group entirely.
We know it's like super harsh, but like production is money.
If it wasn't just like with us, if it was with someone else, you'd be kicked off set immediately. So just if you can't let us know and stuff like that for when we're actually doing a production.
If it's an emergency, like we understand, just please communicate with us pretty much.
Like if you get in a car crash, of course, it's not going to be like, well, you're kicked out.
Or like if like a huge amount of traffic happens, everyone's late. You know what I mean? Like it's really
exactly.
Like if somebody gets in a crash like ahead of you and then all of traffic is behind, then of course you're going to be late, and that makes sense. And then you just let us know. But if it's like, I don't know.
We're just trying to prepare everyone for because in the future we are going to be working on productions, hopefully, and we want to make sure that everyone knows, and we don't end up sounding like dicks later. Like, come on, blah, blah, because at the end of the day, it will cost money. People will be traveling, most likely. They will be giving up their time, possibly money, to be there, and we don't want to waste anybody's time as well with that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like to be as professional as possible most of the time.
It's also just for the whole, like, setting you guys up for the future too. Like if we're working on more projects than just ours, like if you're working on someone else's, you need to take it professionally and get there on time and be ready pretty much.
And we've had people tell us like, oh, well, you don't need to be this productive or whatever. But at the end of the day, just because you've had a bad experience in Hollywood, or just because you've seen that not every case is exactly as organized or professional as it should be, does not mean that we shouldn't be. And if anything, it means that we are going to stand out and put ourselves apart from them and get more jobs and get more opportunities because of our work ethic and because, of our dedication. So we want to create that discipline in ourselves and put ourselves apart in that way, and not just settle for, oh, if this person can like be late or whatever, then, and they're a professional, then I don't have to be on,
Yeah, like that's not how you should look at it. You should always be trying to be better than others and try to be the best version of you that you can be no matter what.
Yeah.
So I'm just
before you talk about next week, soon, how's your script coming along? Like, you got a log line? Any progress?
Oh yeah. Were you talking to me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I sent Lakota. I sent Lakota a message earlier. It was about how I was dealing with some health and work issues. Well, I don't know if I told him that, but
I'm sorry.
My script got sidelined like crazy, but now I'm finally going back to it, and I should be finished by like.
He did tell me. I'm so sorry. I forgot.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I just wanted to make sure I gave you the opportunity. I just wanted to make sure I gave you the opportunity to share if you had something to share and that kind of thing. Sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I wasn't communicating well with you guys when it was going on, so like.
Oh, but hopefully it's better. If you need any help, if you need any like tips, let us know. And yeah, like, sorry. God, I feel horrible.
I did wanted to ask Lakota something.
Yeah, what's up?
Like you're gonna say no.
What?
I remember when I came in and you were talking about a script. You were talking about script you were talking about. You were talking about a script and you said when Priscilla read it, she understood the plot twist in the middle of it, and when someone else read it, they didn't get it. And until by the end, I was wondering if I like, since my script is like that, it's a short story that has a plot twist. I was wondering, okay, I don't want to say let me read it because I don't want you to think I'm going to copy, but like.
Oh, you want to read the script that I wrote that I'm talking?
Yeah, but I know it's like, I don't want like you.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
No problem. The only reason I haven't posted these ones, like I'm fine sharing all of my scripts. The only reason I haven't posted these ones is I wrote them earlier on before I started this whole group. And so they're not formatted correctly yet. But like I'll still send it to you because it's fine.
Okay.
Before I posted up to the group, I was going to like go back in and change
reformat it, fix it.
Now that I've learned how to do that.
Okay, but
yeah. Another tip
I'll send that to you right after the group.
Yeah.
Another tip that I was gonna give, guys, if you want other opinions, you can send it to people in the group individually. Like, hey, is it okay if you read this and tell me how you felt, what you think? Like multiple opinions. You can send it to me and Lakota, and we'll see. We have very different perspectives in some things, so we may disagree. Or you can send it to a family member and ask them to read it and see if they get it. You know, that's kind of what I've been doing. I've been sometimes sending it to my little brother or having Coda read it, my little brother read it, you know, having multiple people give me their feedback. So that I can see like,
or if it's like very different, because, you know, like I said, like the one with mine is like, you don't know if Priscilla's right, or if you don't know if the other person's right, or if it's somewhere in the middle. So.
I think the thing is that person probably never went to the place where the thing was. You'll understand when you read it, Jason. Because like I've seen, not only have I been there, but I've seen it in movies and TV shows. So like as soon as there was like one thing mentioned, I was like, oh, that's where it is. And I knew it because of that, because of like one little line of dialogue.
Yeah,
and one description.
Not make sense to anybody because the script's not out, but
like there was one description and I was just like, oh, got it. But I feel like it's fairly obvious because we've seen it in movies and TVs and TV shows, and like those things exist and are made fun of. And so I'm curious to see what you think, Jason, and if you validate me or not. If not, either way, I'm validated because like either I'm super smart and I get things other people don't. I'm kidding. or I'm arrogant and think that everyone should think like me. So maybe I should like go down a peg or something and look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah,
you know,
she does watch a lot of stuff, so she does kind of pick up on everything right away. But hold on. All right, so I'm gonna end it, but let me just show you guys what we're doing next week. So in the production side, we're actually going to be looking into script supervisors this next week. So over the weekend and on Monday, try to look into these videos that are in the syllabus, because we're going to be talking about that Monday. Monday's going to be a discussion on script supervisors, because that's a very important role, as everything is, but it's just something to look into so we can see what they do, you know, and how they, what they do on set and what they do, you know, I don't know. I think they're only on set, but I think they might do a little bit of pre-production. But we'll learn about them a lot more once we look it up. But we'll be talking about them on Monday, and then next Thursday, we're going to be giving out another little activity to do. We're going to be doing a script conversion where we're going to give you guys a scene from a movie or a show. And it could be a different genre, like a comedy maybe. And we're going to like pick randomly again. And we're going to say, all right, you got to make this into a horror, or you got to make this into a action thriller. Still keep the basis of the story the same, but change some things to make it not comedy anymore and make it action, or however it's going to be.
I feel like that's going to be real fun.
It's going to be fun and interesting to see how everybody does it. But it'll also show you guys how like little changes can really change the whole outlook of the scene or the script. So it depends on what it's going to be. Like if it's a horror scene, you're going to have to change it maybe into a comedy, and that's going to be hard to do. So you're going to have to go in, rework it without changing too much to where it's unrecognizable. And yeah, so that's what we're doing this next week. So just try to look up these videos if you can this weekend, the websites and all that. Read about it, look it up, and we'll be talking about what they do and talking about their importance and their role on Monday.
Yeah. One last thing, just to make it clear, I was joking. I don't, just to make it clear, because
Oh,
I
I
sounded
know.
a little bit.
Yeah,
I
I
know. But like for real, like I'm curious because I was also in doubt of like maybe I've just seen too much stuff to the point where I get things quicker because I've seen it so much. And that really worries me as far as my script writing goes, because I don't want to automatically assume that people will understand something that they might not. But on the other hand, I also feel like Coda script, like even if you don't get it immediately, what it was, when you get it at the end, you're like, oh, and then when you read back, you can see the subtleties that were kind of pointing to that. And my opinion is just that I feel like there's like he doesn't need to add anything else, but you can let us know because I am actually curious to hear your perspective.
All right, and then I'll be posting that up to Facebook group once I reformat it so everyone else can like read it and give their opinion as well. All right, guys. Thanks for coming.
All right, guys, have a good night.
Hey,
Oh, wait,
are we
wait.
still-
What, Raphael?
What?
are we still choosing the script for like if you guys actually want to make a like an actual project?
We were going, yeah, like we're still gonna do that, but I was thinking of probably postponing that to the end of the semester.
Because a lot of people are working on their 48-hour thing.
So the last meeting
ideas.
I have set up for April 12th is choosing favorite scripts of each person. And
Because we're supposed to also choose a script that is easy and like that is on a budget and is easy enough to make. And very few people have written their budget scripts. So we're
I'm
kind
gonna
of
wait
also
until April 12th, and then we might like look into the one that we actually might want to make at the end of the next semester.
yeah, because we're also wanting to wait to give people opportunities to make not only this script but also their budget script. To like, oh, I think maybe this could be a story we could make, you know, on a budget and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, but don't feel sad if we don't pick yours.
No, I don't. I'm honestly excited to see like other people's.
But still make it though. Try to, like, for real. Like, yeah, you have your amazing, incredible idea, but maybe like sit down and see, okay, what kind of story can I tell that's reasonable, that takes place in either one or two locations, doesn't have that many, you know, that many things that, you know. I feel like I'm curious to see what you guys can come up with. I know it's scary and I know it's daunting, but even if it's a first draft, come on, just put yourself out there, guys. Please.
Yeah. Good job, James, at coming up with some stuff, and good job, Raphael, at making your story wheel, and everybody, good job. Shisomi, you made your idea. Your idea is very interesting. Sarah, you've been writing all the scripts on time, so you know.
No, Sarah, you've been getting so much better. It's amazing. Honestly, I did not expect us to have I did not expect there to be so much growth, because there's a lot of little things that take time for us to get better at and learn, and little mistakes. And of course, there's still little formatting mistakes that we need to work on and stuff, but you especially, like, you've been getting better and better with every script, and you're such a quick learner. It's amazing. Like, it's so awesome. You have a real talent for it. I know that we are more like, we try to give critique first and compliment second. So sometimes it seems like the critiques are so much more than the compliments, but for real, like, they're not. We constantly look forward to reading your stuff.
Thanks. That's awesome. Yeah. I like doing it. I like hitting all my deadlines and getting better at like mixing and matching and just getting better at multiple processes while I work at some other things. So
Yeah,
it's fun while I do my training at the same time. It like splits up the work, brain work, and physical work. That's why I like it.
Yeah.
And emotional work, that's acting.
Right.
So it's like a balance. Yeah, seriously, it ends up being a lot. Some days I feel like I'm not getting that much done. but I feel like
Sure you
that way.
get
no
much
matter-
done, but I feel the same way. Yeah, like even when I get stuff done, I feel like I should have got more done. Like,
Yeah, no, people are just like, Sarah, there's more to life than getting stuff done. I'm like, yeah, yeah, but you know, if you know me, you'll know I play hard too. Like if I go for a bike ride, I'm not thinking about work at all. I'm not thinking about anything else.
that's different for me. I'm always thinking about what I could be doing instead of like what I'm actually doing. Sometimes
But
even
you're getting better at
it actually
that.
sucks sometimes because it's like sometimes it's like hard to have fun because it's more like, well, what could I be doing productive?
If I feel that way, that means that there's something I don't want to actually be there, and I feel that way about work sometimes, and I feel that that is normal.
Yeah.
But if I'm
Oh, yeah.
playing music, I'm not thinking about anything else. If I'm like, you know what I mean? If I'm
Yeah.
acting, I'm fully in the moment. So I mean, like if you're doing things that give you no room, if I'm connecting with my friends, I mean, sometimes you're sitting there, if you're hanging out with like certain friends all the time, there's gonna be time when you're thinking about work and other things. But if you see people not that often, then I notice that it becomes more quality. So you're less
Yeah.
likely to think about other things. I don't know. It's a weird
Yeah,
one.
he's getting better at finding that balance, I feel like.
Oh,
But
you
okay,
guys-
guys. You guys
Huh?
enjoy your night. Have a great night.
Enjoy your weekend, guys. Try to look up the script supervisor stuff if you can. And just work on your scripts more.
We'll
Alright.
try to
Get
send
done.
out the main. We'll try to do what we can and send out the main videos through the WhatsApp group. But still, it's good checking them out and seeing if any others are, because maybe something that we don't think is important overall may be important to you specifically or something like that. We're talking about the videos overall, and the videos that you don't find on the syllabus.
Talking about the videos of the script supervisor videos.
And also the
Okay.
videos that you guys don't find on the syllabus, don't forget that there's way more stuff on the playlist. So if you have a video and you're like, this is interesting, and you feel it could be added to the playlist, go check out the playlist, see if it has it. If it doesn't, talk to us and maybe we can add it.
Raphael,
Or-
I know you have a lot of like videos you show us. Like, if they're not on the playlist that we have on the YouTube, if you could like let us know and we'll add it to them.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or you guys can
We'll
check
just, like,
out the
figure out, like, oh,
playlist.
this goes with screenwriting, so let me put it in the screenwriting playlist. And stuff like
Or
that.
if you guys aren't finding something in the syllabus particularly, you can look at the playlist and see if maybe that has some stuff, because there's some stuff on the playlist also that's just like not as great because we just put up everything we could find in it.
That makes sense. Oh,
Yeah, like some of
question.
it- yeah.
Send the link sheet via email.
The what sheet?
Because it's like you posted. It's
Oh,
like,
the links. It's on
Yes,
the syllabus
you did
in
attachment.
Coda. Can
the
you show her the
YouTube
part
or-
of the syllabus that it's on?
No, I know, but if you can you attach it? Oh, fucking cat.
What?
Maybe he can show you the part of the syllabus where the links are, and that'll be easier for you to find
No,
them.
I took a screenshot of it already. I just wondered if you can actually send. I don't know. I guess it's not.
Oh
on
no,
me.
no, I mean like he can email you
but you
the
don't have the
part and you
syllabus
can
already?
press.
Is that what you mean?
I don't think you ever emailed the syllabus. I just took screenshots of everything.
Oh,
Really? Oh my gosh, no, yeah, I can send you the syllabus.
holy cow! Yeah, we'll send you the
All right,
syllabus.
yeah, I'm gonna send you the syllabuses, and then I'm gonna send Chisholm the script I wrote.
And you just have to go to like class number so and so, and it's like separated by number of class, and the links will be there. Or if you want to go back and watch other stuff, like I said, there's the
love it.
YouTube and the
Yeah,
YouTube
Sarah, man, you
playlist.
should have told us this so much earlier. You're at the end of the
Yeah.
Yeah.
The playlists in the YouTube channel are separated by topic, so you can also, like, if you want to go back and check something and relearn something or something you may have missed or something you want to reiterate or hear again, revisit, you can also check that. Or if
Oh,
you
that's
want
awesome. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good to have access to everything. I mean, I rarely revisit stuff just because like I get thrown a lot of balls, which is
Yeah.
cool. So I just like but I get better and it gets, I've been learning a hell of a lot.
Awesome.
It's
Yeah,
awesome.
I'll send that stuff to you guys.
Me
All right.
too. All right, thanks.
Yep. I'm gonna call it there though. Bye guys.
All right. Have a
Appreciate
good
it.
Bye,
night.
good night.
Bye.
Bye.